to Hello Houston. Coming up this hour, Galveston City Manager joins us to talk about the latest renovations to the city. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk about Harris County's climate justice plan, and we'll understand how it could impact our lives.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll hear from Mary Lee Wilkens, president of the Junior League of Houston, who tells us about their Centennial celebration.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
All that and more coming up right here on Hello Houston, right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Ukraine's air defenses over Kyiv last night against the latest wave of Russian strikes. President Trump, who has sought to mediate an end to Russia's more than three-year-old war with Ukraine, has expressed frustration with the leaders of both countries, Presidents Putin of Russia and Zelensky of Ukraine. NPR's Charles Maines has more on the peace plan the White House has touted.
The White House has yet to publicly offer specifics on this peace plan, but it's clear it heavily favors Russia on paper. J.D. Vance said this deal would lock in the current front lines or something close to it. But the latest dust-up with Ukraine involves Zelensky's refusal to acknowledge the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia took from Ukraine in 2014, as now formally part of Russia. This is apparently a component of this U.S. peace deal and a non-starter for Ukraine. As to Russia's reaction, the Kremlin only said it welcomed American negotiation efforts.
NPR's Charles Maines reporting. The Vatican says more than 50,000 people visited the body of the late Pope Francis on the first day of public viewing in St. Peter's Basilica. NPR's Jason DeRose reports from Rome that the viewing continues until Friday evening.
After 3 days of public viewing, Francis' coffin will be sealed Friday at 8 p.m. local time. The following morning, the funeral rite takes place in St. Peter's Square. Later that day, Pope Francis' body will be interred in the Basilica of St. Mary Major across town. Saturday marks the beginning of something called the Novemdialis, an ancient tradition of 9 days of mourning and masses for the repose of the late Pope's soul. After that period, the Conclave begins, at which cardinals will elect the next leader of the world's 1.4 billion Roman Catholics. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Rome.
In the United States, home sales slowed sharply last month. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the latest numbers from the National Association of Realtors.
Spring is ordinarily a busy time for buying and selling houses, but not with mortgage rates near 7%. The combination of high borrowing costs and high prices is keeping homes out of reach for many would-be buyers. The Realtors Association says sales of existing homes were down almost 6% last month. The average selling price continues to climb, however. Last month it was just under $404,000. A flurry of new orders for airplanes caused a spike in durable goods orders last month. The Commerce Department says orders for long-lasting manufactured goods jumped a whopping 9.2% in March. Stripping out airplanes and other transportation equipment, durable goods orders were flat. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. stocks trading higher this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 255 points, or more than 0.5%, at 39,862. The S&P has climbed 1.3%. The Nasdaq is up 1.8%. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. The Texas Senate has passed a bill to ban local governments from adopting guaranteed income programs. News 88.7's government reporter Andrew Schneider says the measure comes as Harris County's program is blocked by a court challenge from the state attorney general.
Senate Bill 2010 ensures that counties and cities comply with the provision in the Texas Constitution banning grants of public money to private individuals. County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, the leading force behind Harris County's Guaranteed Income Program, calls the bill embarrassing.
For folks in the legislature to spend an inordinate amount of time and money to give vouchers to people who could afford to pay for their kids to go to private schools if they want them to go, and then to come back in the next week and you will shut down this guaranteed income program, it's the height of hypocrisy.
The bill now goes to the House. A state appeals court has halted payments under Harris County's program pending an appeal by Attorney General Ken Paxton. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
ConocoPhillips is expecting to lay off several employees at the end of this year. News 88.7's Matt Harrop reports.
Reuters reports that the layoffs are likely coming at the end of this year to help streamline operations and cut costs. It's unknown just how many people will be let go, but the decision comes in the wake of a $23 billion buyout with the company's rival, Marathon Oil. ConocoPhillips laid off up to 500 Houston area employees in 2020 when the COVID pandemic rocked global markets. The move this time around is possibly a sign of more pain ahead for the oil and gas industry. The price of oil is hovering around $63 a barrel right now, which many oil companies say can't make them profitable.
And the Houston Rockets evened up their playoff series with the Golden State Warriors yesterday, the Rockets securing a 109-94 victory. Houston guard Jalen Green exploded for 38 points. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
That's us.
That's us. It's Thursday.
Us.
Hi, Celeste.
Hi, Frank. Hi, Ernie.
Hello. As we are chatting with you, as we always like to do, we're inviting you into our conversation, but you can do it right on YouTube. It's really easy to do. Go to YouTube, then look for the Houston Public Media account channel, and we're there. We're live streaming. Or you can go to the Hello Houston website, hellohouston.org. I'll let Frank say it. What's there at the top?
The big orange button.
He loves that.
Yeah, don't forget
button.
to subscribe and like our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That's how we know you're there.
And follow us on Instagram at hellohouston.show.
Perfect.
Have you gotten enough work yet? I'm going to give you some more here. Also, our phone number. You can call us on any topic we're talking about. And to talk with our guests today, just dial 713-440-8870. Or finally, email us, talk@hellohouston.org. Is that everything?
No, the weather.
Oh, well, I mean, everything for them to do. This is something you get to do now,
I know,
Frank.
right? But it's quick today. Partly cloudy skies. 20% chance for a shower today.
It's nice
system
out.
trying to come in from the north west. But that's it. And then as we go to the weekend, warm and partly cloudy every day. I know. Friday,
Great.
Saturday, Sunday. It didn't rain on Easter Sunday, so it's not going to rain this Sunday either.
So if it didn't, does that mean for 10 Sundays we won't get rain?
No.
Oh, well, we can try here. Weather, temperatures, highs. How bad's it going to be?
86.
Oh, that's great.
Not bad, but a little humid. I mean, we're starting to feel it.
All right. Well, you know what else you'll be able to feel? You'll be able to feel our show today because we got a lot to talk about, a lot coming up, including we're going to find out how we keep the environment better for all of us throughout Harris County. There's a plan in place to start emphasizing that in things that are happening in our area. We'll be talking about that. But as always, we like to start the show with our headlines, and Celeste always starts us off.
That's right. So the Texas Education Agency, or the TEA, has released the A through F accountability ratings for the 2022-2023 school year. Now, for those who may not have been following this, the TEA's accountability rating had been in limbo due to a lawsuit and also because of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic that had on a lot of stress on the school districts across the state. And the A through F accountability system started back in 2017, and it evaluates schools in 3 key areas: student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. And one of the big issues districts had was the way the scores are now calculated changed from previous years, really affecting the 2022-2023 school year ratings. Houston Public Media's education reporter Colleen DeGuzman will be joining us in the next hour to really unpack what these ratings mean, why, such the holdup, the lawsuit, why this has been such a controversial issue. But we want to hear your thoughts on this new release, and a lot of people in school districts across the state have been really waiting to see what the rating was going to be, and you can give us a call at 713-440-8870. And, Katy ISD got a B.
Nobody got an F.
Nobody got an F. Spring Branch ISD got a C. Houston ISD got a C.
It'll be interesting to see. So the 24-25 ratings are going to be out in August. So they're moving really quickly now. It'll be interesting to see the difference between them, and especially for HISD with all the change, all that's been going on. How did they rank them?
Right.
Tomball got an A. The only A was Tomball.
Tomball got an A. Yeah. And I mean, we're looking at basically a lot of people felt that the new rating system that was implemented was unfair because it was coming in right at a time where we were coming out of a pandemic. And the other part of it was going to make it much harder for school districts to get a higher grade. But we're going to learn all about that in the next hour.
There was so much virtual teaching for so long. You wonder how that affected the next year.
Well, we know it was detrimental to so many students from an academic level, but also a behavioral level as well.
So call in with your questions and emails, and that'll be nice because then we're going to have Colleen here with us in the next hour, so we'll be able to address all those. The number's 713-440-8870, or email us talk@hellohouston.org. Our next story, I think, is a really interesting one. A group of Harris County Democratic Party officials are criticizing Houston Mayor John Whitmire over his participation in a fundraiser for U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw, a Republican. So 30% of the chairs signed a formal admonishment, which was first reported by the Houston Chronicle. It condemned the political behavior of John Whitmire and finds that his conduct undermines the values and mission of the Democratic Party and calls for the primary to deny endorsements in future elections. According to Mike Doyle, who is the county chair for the party, the admonishment will be voted on by all 591 precinct chairs. Now, Whitmire has spent a combined 50 years in the Texas House and Senate as a Democratic lawmaker before winning the Houston mayor election in 2023. Mayor elections, though, in the city are technically nonpartisan, and Whitmire drew support from the political right in his runoff against another Democrat, the late U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. On Tuesday, as Whitmire exited the Crenshaw fundraiser, protesters shouted, "MAGA Mayor." So what do you think about all that? Is this treatment fair to Whitmire? Should he switch parties? Or other options? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Thoughts, my cohorts?
Oh, come on. I like both of those guys, actually. I like Dan Crenshaw. I like John Whitmire. I think as mayor, you have to really reach out to all of our congressional representatives and senators because they control a lot of money that comes our way.
But reaching out or attending a fundraiser.
Well, what do we know?
Things.
Did he actually contribute to the fundraiser, or was it an opportunity
to
meet with Dan and say hello?
When you're at that level, attending is an endorsement. So you go to the fundraiser, he's there, whether he hands cash
well, maybe
over
he considers himself bipartisan in this case.
Well, and I flipped. I'm sorry, you were going to say, Celeste?
No, go ahead, Ernie.
I was going to say I flipped to the other side of this argument too, because isn't the big talk about us coming together? And shouldn't individuals have a right to decide who they like and don't like in a race? And who knows, maybe Whitmire knows that there may be a different Republican that would vie for the seat if Crenshaw wasn't there. And so he is supporting what he thinks is the better choice. Feeling maybe a Democrat can't win the seat. I don't know. I'm just speculating all this. But there could be lots of reasons at play in a political game like this. But we should all be able to step up for whichever candidates we want and let our voice be heard. I'm guessing that's not going to be a popular opinion.
Well, I think that when you say individuals, absolutely individuals should be able to choose. But whenever you are a public figure or you've been an elected official, you represent a certain group of people that want certain things to happen. The flip side to that is we often say reaching across the aisle.
Right.
Now, I understand
But is this reaching too far?
Right. Well, I understand what you mean by saying, well, it was a fundraising event. I have been to political fundraising events where I am not contributing anything, but I truly want to hear what that person, that candidate, potential elected official has to say, what they are, what their vision is, what their mission is.
Right, but you're not the mayor of a city,
Correct.
which is a very high,
Correct.
and he already would know Crenshaw's position and views on things.
So then where should, when we say our public officials, be reaching across the aisle?
Right.
And having these conversations and bringing up questions. Perhaps the mayor brought up some very, no, I don't know, I'm speculating, tough questions in a very intense area, putting somebody to that asking them
optics.
accountable.
That's
a lot of speculation.
Here. And also,
yes,
but
and we're
optics
speculating.
too. What does it look like as opposed to what actually happened? We don't know. We know what it looked like, and we know Democrats aren't happy about that. There we go.
Okay,
I'll wrap
let
it
us
on
know
that
what you
note.
think, right? 713-440-8870. Call us and tell us what you think about this. And this next story comes out of one of my favorite places and yours, right? Galveston.
Yes. Everyone loves Galveston.
City of Galveston is in the early stages of a project to resurface and potentially reconfigure its iconic seawall. And we're talking about like 55 or 60 blocks of the seawall, a huge stretch of this. So according to an announcement on Tuesday, they would repave it from Broadway to 61st, new traffic signals at lots of intersections, and possibly dedicated bike lanes along the thoroughfare. I know, they're looking for approval. They're looking for money. We want to talk to Brian Maxwell. He is the city manager of Galveston and also a friend of mine, just a full disclosure. I know Brian very well, and he was kind enough to step out of a council meeting to speak with us today. So, Brian, give us the skinny on this. What's going on down there?
Well, Frank, first of all, it's beautiful sunny down here. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome. Least I could do.
Yeah, but I'll tell you that, over the past few years, Galveston's been very successful in luring people to our beaches. We've done lots of renourishment, lots of pretty beaches down there. And so that's really increased the amount of car traffic and also the amount of pedestrian traffic. We've got a lot of hotel development and things. And the other thing that's really changed for Galveston is that anything that you can put an electric motor on now runs on our seawall. Scooters and bicycles and everything else.
Golf carts.
Riding a bike down the seawall was one thing on the sidewalk, but now an electric bike going, 20 miles an hour down the seawall, that might be a little different situation for the walkers.
It's dangerous.
So,
I've seen it in action.
So we're trying to sort through all those things, and we're seeking out a plan. And of course, the timing's right because the seawall needs to be repaved, and the county of Galveston is seeking a bond issue to help us repave that. So we're very thankful for that. So before we jump out there and just put everything back the way it is, we want to look at it and see if there's a better way to do this. Is there a better way to incorporate pedestrian crossings? Is there a better way to incorporate possibly a bike lane or something for these new types of vehicles that are moving up and down the seawall so much that tend to cause a little bit of havoc and some danger? We're starting to creep up into some serious pedestrian accidents up there, and we're trying our best to minimize those, obviously, for our visitors and our residents.
So, Brian, let me ask you, what are the challengers to this? What are the people who are opposed to this movement concerned with? Is it just cost? Is it the vision of it? Where seems to be the problem?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest challenge we have is real estate. We only have so much space up there.
Yep.
And the second challenge, which would probably bring about, I would think, the opposition is that, Galveston is a very long, narrow city. And that seawall is our major thoroughfare. That's how we get from east to west in Galveston. And so anything that limits vehicular traffic is going to slow down commuting times and everything in Galveston. People in Galveston, they don't want to give up their 4-minute commute. I hate to say that to everybody up in Houston. But,
oh, my God, now it's 5 or 6 minutes. What will they do?
That's where the biggest thing comes from. And that's really our emergency access thoroughfare, too. That's the one area that's always high if we have storms. That's the one area where we can get ambulances down the center of the seawall and things like that. So that would be where we really look for opposition from, and it's not necessarily opposition. We're looking for good input so we can come up with a good solution.
Well, Brian, are you looking at maybe dividing the seawall into a bike lane, motorized lane, and a pedestrian lane, or would you go into the surface area of the pavement for a bike lane or a golf cart lane or something like that?
There's a lot of challenges with that. First of which, like I said, is real estate.
Yeah.
The second thing is that that is a public beach, so we fall under the state's Open Beaches Act. So we have to be very careful that we don't reduce any beach access where people can park and go to the beach. So that kind of limits us too as to how much. We've got 2 parking lanes up there. We have an emergency lane. We're going to have to work through all those issues. I don't think we really have a definitive idea yet what we're going to do. We're looking to the study to tell us that and to give us as many options as we can. It may be very obvious that some of this just can't happen. And the seawall, a lot of people don't realize it because you're looking at the water when you're driving down the seawall. You're not looking at the crazy stuff that I look at, but the seawall varies in width as you move down it.
True.
So there's some parts of the seawall that are narrower than others. So, we may have some opportunities in certain sections of the seawall that we won't have in others. So it's going to vary, I think, through the length. And there's also some areas that are highly pedestrian traffic, and there's some that just aren't.
So, Brian, quick question for you. How much will this cost? And when you're looking at funding and cost, who will eventually end up paying for it?
Well, the majority of the cost is going to be covered either through the grant or through the county's bond issue that they have out right now, because the main cost of this is the resurfacing of the seawall. Okay. How it gets striped and laid out are going to be, that's somewhat anecdotal to the actual cost of it. The striping there's a striping cost whether we leave it the same or whether we change it. Mm-hmm. Now, other improvements, if they take effect, there's other ways that we can fund that. We have, we charge for parking on the seawall, and we've used that money for improvements up there, lighting, bathrooms, things like that you've all seen. And we can tap into that too if we need to. And that money would also be used to maintain it as we go forward, at least in terms of the pedestrian access areas.
When you talk about the width and the size there, I am curious if you folks have been in conversation with Houston as they are going through some similar growing pains in relationship to their bike lanes. Are you learning from what's going on here in the city? Are you talking with the city managers here to get some understanding of the problems they've faced? Is that going on?
Well, my daughter lives in the Heights in Houston, so I've seen the bike lanes go in. I've seen the bike lanes come out.
Can you learn from our pain?
Yeah, and I would tell you there's a difference in use here, too. Very few people in Galveston bike for transportation. Most people in Galveston bike for recreation. So it's a little bit different usage, and so that's going to play into what we're doing here versus what Houston's done. We have shared with Houston in the past several concepts. I mean, we use, we call them bulb outs, but we use traffic calming measures on a lot of our busier streets where they actually add some landscape features that also tend to slow traffic a little bit. And I've seen that used in Houston. We've communicated to each other how that's working. We've done some of these things to meter and flow drainage, and that's something Houston's done as well. And we've done some street improvements down here, and we've also tried to look, and we've shared consultants with the city of Houston over the years. I know the Goodman Corporation had a lot to do with the work on Shepherd and Durham up there, and we've used them for the initial phase of the seawall improvement several years ago. So there has been some knowledge sharing there, but our uses are somewhat different.
Hey, Brian, who actually is responsible for this seawall? The city, the state, federal, or a mix of it?
All of the above. Okay. I mean, I would tell you that the county owns the seawall, and they have always maintained the surface of it only as a protection of washing it out should we have a hurricane. That's why they've always resurfaced the seawall. Actual traffic control and pedestrian movement on the seawall is under the purview of the city. Okay. And that is between 6th Street, which is Broadway, and 61st Street. Go east of 6th Street or go west of 61st Street, it becomes the purview of the state of Texas. And TxDOT manages all that. So that's why if you're on a golf cart in Galveston, you can drive between 6th and 61st, but you can't drive east of 6th or west of 61st Street.
Well, I was wondering because I have a golf cart. So, what about Jeep Weekend? What's your thoughts there?
Well, our chief has been working really closely with the sheriff. We're going to be sharing a lot of resources with the sheriff's department that weekend. Our main concern is that if things get shuffled off the peninsula, that they end up in Galveston. So we're going to be doing some preemptive measures here to make sure that it doesn't disturb things too much and it doesn't cause traffic. that's the weekend before Memorial Day. It's starting to pick up our busy season, so we want to make sure we don't keep any of our normal visitors from going the places they need to go. But we also want to make sure that that we don't get overrun with what comes off the peninsula.
Brian, we appreciate your taking the time to chat with us. Before I let you go, here's your chance to sell Galveston to our listeners. Why should they be heading on down?
Well, number one, it's because Frank's always here.
Does my key to the city still work, Brian?
Well, no, we changed the locks after we gave it to you.
I thought so.
No, it still does. No, I would tell you right now, you're not going to find a better family destination in Texas than Galveston, with more things to do, some of the best restaurants, and I can say that because I spend a lot of time up with my daughter in Houston, but we have some of the best restaurants here and some of the finest people you're ever going to run into. So come on down. We'd love to have you. It's going to be a great summer with no hurricanes, right, Frank?
You're absolutely right. Listen, I do a segment called Friends of Frank, and it's about 10 minutes long, so I want to get you on that in the future, and we'll really talk and sell Galveston together, okay?
Sounds good, Frank. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
Brian Maxwell is the city manager of Galveston, who joined us right now on Hello Houston.
So nice of him.
That was so nice of him, and really interesting about they're already doing studies. We just get the news, but really they're trying to find solutions to an issue.
Yeah, because they see it coming, and it is so popular. It's 48 miles away, and it's a world away.
And if you've always wanted to go to Galveston, today is National Bucket List Day. So get in your car and head on down there.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we talked to the director of the Harris County Office of Sustainability, Lisa Lin, and the director of Coalition for Environment, Equity, and Resilience, Stefania Tomaskovic, about the county's new climate justice plan. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
A healthy democracy depends on people like you having access to clear, trustworthy news. That's how you can make informed choices about your future.
Houston Public Media's reporting gives you the facts without the noise, so you can make decisions with confidence.
But we can't do that without your support. Stand up for your right to information.
Support the reporting that you count on at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Take a closer look at the forest and the trees.
Trees are kind of this ancient symbol, kind of thinking beyond the usual terms of human life.
The scenery's top-notch in northern Italy's Lake District.
Lake Como has definitely got the most dramatic scenery.
And for a real change of pace, try a tour to Antarctica.
If you see a polar bear, then you're going the wrong way.
It's all in the next Travel with Rick Steves.
Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org. Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Wagner's Tannhäuser in a production featuring tenor Russell Thomas on stage at Wortham Theater, April 25th through May 11th. Tickets are available at hgo.org. Support comes from Scan Health Plan, a not-for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that has been dedicated to the health and independence of their members since 1977. More information at scanhealthplan.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello there. Okay, so in the first segment, we were talking a bit. One of the stories we were talking about was Mayor Whitmire attending a Dan Crenshaw fundraiser, and we asked you what you thought. If you listen to what we thought, we were all over the board on what we thought. Pro and con at the same time. What do you think? Let's find out. The number here is 713-440-8870. We'll start with Stephen from the West Side. Stephen, what are you thinking?
Hello, Frank, Ernie, Celeste, and it's great to hear you again.
Hi, Stephen.
Do y'all remember in the 90s there was a book that we studied in the corporations around Houston, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of the things
Yes.
we learned was seek first to understand and then to be understood. And I always thought that was really good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also that, a more traditional way of electing people where you vote for the best person for the job, and the person who's elected remembers that, yes, they were elected by a majority, but there's other people there that they represent too. And if they would just vote to do the right thing according to their conscience, I think we'd all be better served. No political party has a perfect platform, and the crossover voting that we used to have 30, 40 years ago, I think, was the right way for people to judge what's good for the nation.
Stephen, thank you for that, and I am voting for you when you decide to run for office. I like what you stand for.
I did too.
Thank you, Stephen, for calling in. Our next call at 713-440-8870 is Jim from the Heights. Jim, what's on your mind?
Hello. Speaking of Whitmire and this, I had a real problem with Whitmire when he wouldn't meet with Hidalgo, over the storm situation and emergency situation, something critical to our area. He said he didn't have time for meet and greets. And then we had Kim Ogg, who was a Democrat, who turned a lot of stuff over basically with the Republicans to file charges against people in Hidalgo's office. And I'm thinking the next move for Whitmire is he's going to be meeting with Steve Holtze and signing something as far as a homophobe. He's going to have to sign something like that next. Maybe that's a little over the top, but there's certain line you don't cross, and that's it.
All right, Jim. Thank you for that. Interesting points from Jim, too. We got one more call we'll grab before we introduce our next guest, and that is Brett from Katy. Brett, what's on your mind?
Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Also on the Whitmire segment, if John Whitmire is the mayor of Houston, he represents not just the Democrats, but also the Republicans and every other branch of this political spectrum. And to expect him to do his job and yet not work with our state and federal representatives
Agreed.
is ludicrous.
Yep, agreed, Brett. I agree with you.
That's just crazy.
I think,
He's
Brett, though,
got to maintain those relationships.
And I agree with you on that. I think the concern is coming in as it was a fundraiser, a political endorsing of someone as opposed to a meeting and a summit on policy with someone and working with them, as I think what the issue at hand might be. But I agree with you. I think we need to have more communication and we need to be working together because we're not going to get anywhere if each of us going our own way. Brett, thank you very much for calling in and sharing your thoughts with us. Remember, we're interested in what you all have to say. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. And right now, we're going to move back into our next segment of the show, which will give you even more to talk about out there. Back in 2023, Harris County Office of Sustainability teamed up with the Coalition for Environment, Equity, and Resilience, or SEER, to develop the Climate Justice Plan for Harris County. The Climate Justice Plan, which Harris County Commissioners voted to adopt earlier this month, will tackle climate change from a variety of angles: clean air, clean water, flood resistance, and infrastructure. To tell us more, we welcome Lisa Lin, the Director of the Harris County Office of Sustainability. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
And we also welcome Stefania Tomaskovic, the Director of the Coalition for Environment, Equity, and Resilience. When I say that title, I sit up straight and taller. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I guess the first question where I would start with this is, for the equity part of it, if you are cleaning up the environment, doesn't it impact all people? So how do we say some people are getting a better, cleaner environment in a community than other people in the community?
Sure, that's a great question, Ernie. I think at the base of it, I think the bottom line is that some neighborhoods are more burdened than others, depending on their proximity to different industrial plants or concrete batch plants, that sort of thing, or if they're close to a body of water that floods repeatedly. So I think that's the part of the equity piece and the justice piece that we really want to kind of highlight. That yes, we all kind of breathe air across the region,
Right.
but some parts of the region are closer to these kind of polluted areas.
So what kind of projects really, I mean, that we can look at and talk about do you have in mind?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things we want to talk about is a little bit about how this plan came about, because this is a little bit different than a lot of other planning processes. And with our partnership on this, we really wanted to do an extensive community engagement process to really touch in with residents, especially residents who are impacted by pollution and by extreme weather, by climate issues in Harris County. And so what we did was we started this project back in 2023. We held a number of community meetings to really outline the vision and values for this process. And then along the way, we've integrated more and more community members into the process of helping to identify the major buckets of work. So there's really 5 pillars to the plan that include economy, ecology, infrastructure, community, and culture. And then really outline the specific actions, which I think you're asking about here, right? And what we see, there's a lot of things that people want to see. Some of these are very long-term actions and things that will take some time and a lot of coordination and cooperation. But then I think there's also things that are really targeted for the near term.
Yeah, and I think there's also kind of a range of some ideas being very concrete and things that we can actually start on even this year. So one example might be, reducing the cost of solar for area households, and we're actually partnering with SUN, the Solar United Neighbors kind of nonprofit, to bring down the cost of solar on rooftops. But then there's also other ones where it's like, how do we organize internally at the county and work with community partners like SEER and bring up those successful models of initiatives that have happened on the ground and bring them into the county and learn about how to replicate that and share those stories across
How is this
the region.
program different from what we've had in place before? What's the new innovation in this new approach?
We haven't had a plan this robust and this holistic at the county before that focuses on not just climate, but also transparency and accountability, resilience from many types of infrastructure types, right? So from the grid, we heard a lot about grid resilience in our meetings last year. We point to the flood control district's flood resilience plan. So there's that big infrastructure kind of planning process that's underway. Even clean water and access to clean water and mobility options and transportation options. So.
Yeah, and so it says that you guys are tackling climate change from a variety of angles, and we've heard all of those angles. But whenever you're trying to tackle so much, how do you prioritize? Clean air, clean water, flood resilience, infrastructure. When you're looking at Harris County, when you pinpoint, what are you saying? Yes, people need these things, because that's a lot to cover, right? How are you effective in that?
Yeah, definitely. So in the plan, there are 70 kind of near-term or 5-year actions. But then even within that 70 list, we have 21 early actions. So between what we're doing currently at the county and what community partners are doing. And again, this plan is not just county government implementing, right? We are really leaning on our partners in the community, other stakeholders across the region to help us kind of bring this plan to life. And that's how we're seeing this moving forward into implementation.
So I don't know if you've looked at this. I've done reports on it and studied it, but there is a real dearth of just trees in certain neighborhoods, usually underserved neighborhoods. More posh neighborhoods have lots of trees, lots of shade. But trees speak to everything you're talking about: sustainability, flooding, climate, heat. Urban heat island, lack of air conditioning, it's a health danger. Have you looked at this, and if you haven't, are you going to?
Yeah, I think trees are a huge issue, and not just trees, but also native plants. and grasses. So a lot of people think about trees as one of the major nature-based solutions that we can implement right away to help with exactly what you're talking about, to help protect people in their homes, to help reduce energy bills, to help people who are just walking down the street. You know, I have lived in neighborhoods where some streets have trees, some don't. You just take a walk on a hot summer day and you notice a tremendous difference.
15 degrees.
Yes.
If you're under a tree.
So that is a huge thing that's relatively easy to implement. Right. And so the process, we actually worked with a lot of our partners in some of the local conservation groups, some of the botanical gardens. We spoke with a lot of people who are doing this kind of work and are working on ways that we can address the tree issue, and also native plants, which also help reduce heat, help reduce flooding, all these benefits that you mentioned.
One of the when we were doing our pledge last week, one of the options was people could choose to plant a tree.
Right.
So hopefully that helped. But there's a lot to be done in that department.
You said my favorite buzzword there, flooding. So hard and soft solutions to flooding, meaning, you know, either you build barriers or the ground that can absorb. How are we looking at this and balancing cost, maintenance, ecological benefit? How much of a part of this is in the program and what's it doing?
Yeah, I mean, if you look in the ecology section, there's pretty robust kind of actions around ecological resilience. I think a lot of our advisory collaborative members who helped shape this plan, and that was a group of community leaders that was chosen by our community partner, some youth leaders, so from high schoolers to kind of early career professionals to our commissioners' court offices. We kind of had this group that helped us think through some of these ideas, and we had a lot of folks who were very much kind of on the, I would say they're ecological leaders in this in Houston, Harris County. And so if you look at that section, there's, you know, to Stefania's earlier point, native grasses, right? How can we introduce that at all levels of scale, like from your neighborhood, from your home, up to kind of large scale applications around the county? And so if you look at, you know, native grasses, oftentimes their root structure can go down like 8 to 10 feet versus turf grass, which only goes down maybe a few inches.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we collectively introduce these interventions at different scales and make our region more of a sponge versus letting kind of, you know, these flooding impacts happen over and over again? How can we take action?
And just to clarify, how much coverage, being the county, what is your flood control authority over the city of Houston? Does this stuff, how's the overplay? That always confuses me between city and county.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of coordination that happens, and I think I think another follow-up segment might actually to bring in the flood control district to speak more on that partnership, because I think that happens at all scales.
How involved or bought into this project is the city of Houston?
We have had many conversations with them. A lot of the community meetings involved city staff. And so, again, with the infrastructure section, there's a lot around water. And so pointing to kind of, you know, things that we can help tie those needs together from what we heard from the residents to what's happening at the city. Like we want to be that bridge and that connection to finding real solutions.
I don't want to overstep, but if I remember, the city is responsible for street flooding. Mm-hmm. And making sure that infrastructure, that those pipes, those sewer are getting down to the bayous, whereas Harris County Flood Control takes over the waterways.
Yes, but then also in unencrypted Harris County, right, our engineering department also works on street flooding and drainage issues too. And so there's, again, a lot of coordination that has to happen across scales.
You know, there are still a lot of people that perhaps they're listening to this and they think, you know, climate change, we've been talking about it for a really long time. You know, should our resources really be going towards this? You know, what do you say to people that think plant some trees and we'll be okay? I mean, this is a really big project. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say we have been seeing year after year record-breaking heat or other kinds of extreme weather. I mean, Winter Storm Uri was very unexpected for our region, and we see these kind of extreme weather events that both I think are an indicator of some of the climate change that's happening in our region, but also have profound impact on the residents of Harris County. So I think preparing for and trying to mitigate that kind of extreme weather that's been happening is incredibly important. I think we could all name some personal experiences from hurricanes, from Uri, people getting their cars flooded, their pipes bursting, but even just the chronic stress of heat. Mm-hmm. If you are living in a home that does not have either air conditioning or is not adequately insulated, you could be experiencing both extreme bills from trying to maintain an indoor environment that's safe, or you could be exposing yourself to chronic health issues. So I think you need to think about the cost. There's been studies that say that for every $1 spent in mitigation, you're actually saving $6. Mm-hmm. So it can be cost effective, but also if you think about like the whole line of costs, if we're implementing programs that help keep people out of the emergency room, we could be saving money in the long run too.
How much is all of this? And who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the next phase of this implementation kind of, piece that we're in now. Because like some of them actually are just kind of process improvements. Some of them are actually low cost, no cost actions. Some of them are kind of leaning on things that are happening in the community or happening at the county. And some of them might be new. And then we'll be looking at different funding sources. Is it philanthropic organizations? Is the county looking at how we're budgeting and kind of investing in this? And that's something that our Commissioners Court has also asked us to do and look at, how do we implement some of these kind of near-term wins into this upcoming budget cycle? So those are the exercises that we're undergoing now.
And we want to remind you, you're listening to Hello Houston. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We're currently talking about the Harris County Commissioners voting on the Climate Justice Plan. So what is it, something that you think people should really understand? We talked about the economic impacts when we're not looking towards the future when it's talking about sustainability and climate. What are some things and some misconceptions that you think are still out there that y'all wish could just go away?
I mean, I really hope that people open up the document and kind of look through the different sections, because I think there is a lot of different things that will kind of bring people into wanting to participate. So if it's local nutritious food or community gardens or connected parks and green space, native seed banks at the libraries, repair cafe, lending libraries, these are all things that we heard over and over that I think are kind of very foundational to having a high quality of life here and thriving in our region.
So things that really affect people in their every single day, right? Is that what y'all are saying? Because I think about community gardens, and I love seeing them throughout Harris County. It's absolutely beautiful. My other question for you is, if people want to look at this document, where can they go to find it?
They can go to the Office of County Administration website, and the full document is online there.
We talk a lot about the cost of it. We talk a lot about the ideas and the projects behind it. But talk to me a little bit about the economic engine that it brings in creating new jobs in our area, too, to be able to implement this and the positives of its impact there.
Yeah. So I think in the economy section, there's one early action around this idea of a placement initiative. I think we at the county have been participating in this really great roundtable called the Resiliency Workforce Collaborative that's been funded by JPMorgan Chase. And it's working with Houston Community College and a lot of these workforce providers. And what we've heard from participating in that is that oftentimes there's a great pipeline, but then where do the upskilled folks kind of end up? And where can we as large employers play into that pipeline and having economic opportunities for folks who want to understand how to get into the clean energy transition space or weatherization or construction, that sort of thing. So we want to explore that and work with other large employers to figure that out.
Well, that sounds very exciting. Lisa Lin is the director of the Harris County Office of Sustainability, and Stefania Tomaskovic is the director of the Coalition for Environment, Equity, and Resilience. Lisa and Stefania, thank you both for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Plant a tree.
That's right. Open the document. Coming up, we'll talk to Mary Lee Wilkens about the Junior League of Houston Centennial celebration. This is Hello Houston Continues. Stay with us.
I'm Christopher Kimball from Milk Street Radio. There's a hot new trend in beer, and let's just say double IPAs have been replaced by something much lighter.
It is literally a pint of beer foam.
A long and curious history of beer this week on Mill Street Radio from PRX.
Tune in Sunday at 1 on News 88.7.
When severe weather hits, when power goes out, when the roads are dangerous, this is the station that keeps you up to date and informed.
You've counted on Houston Public Media during past storms, and we'll be here during the next one too, but only with your support.
Your gift today helps make sure this newsroom is ready 24/7 to deliver you critical information when it matters most.
You can make that happen. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from the Inspirity Invitational, presented by United Healthcare, bringing the legends of the PGA Tour champions to the Woodlands Country Club tournament course, April 28th to May 4th. More information at inspirityinvitational.com. Support comes from Artec House, Houston's home for digital art and immersive experiences, located in the Heights. A journey across time and space in 26,000 square feet of interactive installations. Tickets at artechhouse.com. Support comes from Scan Health Plan, a not-for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that has been dedicated to the health and independence of their members since 1977. More information at scanhealthplan.com. Support comes from Twin Liquors, a Texas family-owned home for wine and spirits since 1937. With over 100 locations across the state, Twin Liquors is proud to be part of the community. Orders available online at twinliquors.com for delivery or pickup.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston.
We've had quite a day, just full of so many topics. I'm Celestia Sherman here with Ernie Manous and Frank Billingsley, and I'm going to take us back now to 100 years ago in 1925, and I want us
Seems
to
like
think
yesterday to
about
me.
In 1925, women across America were experiencing major shifts in culture and politics and freedoms that they hadn't experienced before. Experimenting with shorter hairstyles, fighting for equal rights, taking on more roles in the workplace. And right here in Houston, 12 women joined forces to give back to their community and start the Junior League of Houston. And that vision of giving back and building a better community has now grown into the largest junior league chapter in the world.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And celebrating 100 years is a major milestone. And to tell us more is Mary Lee Wilkens, president of the Junior League of Houston. Mary Lee, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here.
Yes. And so, right off the bat, I think a lot of people think of the Junior League and they immediately go to, just ladies who lunch. But really, Mary Lee, why don't you tell us, for those that might not know, what the Junior League really is?
Absolutely. So I would like to say this is going to be a very simplistic example, but it's probably easiest to think of the Junior League in two separate buckets. One, a lot of people go to the Junior League for events.
As a building.
Right. So that is an event venue in Houston that actually supports our community efforts. So our building is lovely and fun, but it's also our headquarters where we do a lot of important training for our members, but also, like I said, a lot of cool events.
Yep,
weddings.
And it is beautiful.
I've spoken there many times.
Yeah.
And they have a great audio-visual system, which not everybody does, so it's nice to have that.
And you just remodeled it. It's
we did.
Beautiful.
We did.
You spruced it up.
We timed that remodel with our Centennial.
Yeah.
So we wanted
there's
it to
the building, the venue of Junior League, but then there's the organization.
Correct. And we have 4,000 members. Like Celeste said, we are the largest junior league in the world. I always like to say, take that, Dallas.
That's right.
I love Dallas. Junior League dearly, but we do go back and forth with them.
Yeah. Yes, on many things.
Yeah.
far north Houston.
So we have 4,000 members, which includes our sustaining members, but we have 1,400 active members who are volunteering in the community every day.
Talk a little bit about that aspect of the
Yeah.
Junior League. So it's not just a bunch of you locked away in a building that rents your venue. It is an organization that goes out into the community and makes a difference.
Absolutely. So our active members are serving in 30 different community placements. And so those placements are, we were volunteering at established, like long-standing nonprofit organizations that you've all heard of, Texas Children's Hospital, the Museum of Fine Arts. But we also partner with agencies that are newer, like Books Between Kids. We help sort books and distribute those. We work with Bo's Place, which is a grief facility in Houston. Those are just a few that we work with. But we really have a wide range of placements that focus on 3 certain areas that mean a lot to our members. And those all deal with women and children.
And, we recently had, yesterday we had Brian Green here from the Food Bank as well as the DePelchin Children's Center. And both organizations partner with the Junior League. How do you become a partner with the Junior League? I mean, there is a process where y'all are making sure that that organization meets a need. Talk to us about that process.
There is a long process. Everything about the Junior League, we've been compared to an ocean liner, so it's hard to
Well, you're
turn.
100 years old.
Yes.
You can take your time.
So everything we do is taking a risk by taking on a partner, and it's a risk for that agency also to take on the league as a partner. So it takes a long process to.
It's vetting. It's making sure they're qualified. You're using
Absolutely.
your hours with them for the maximum benefit, vice versa.
Absolutely. And over 90% of our members work at least part-time now. So we have to make sure that what the agency can offer as a volunteer matches what our members have time for in their schedules. So it's a tough.
Speaking of time, and in full disclosure, I know one of the co-hosts on this show is a junior leaguer, and it isn't Frank or me. So we know it is. And what I hear about from Celeste all the time is, got to get my hours in. I've got to do. So to be a member, there is a commitment of time that you have to put in. You can't it's just not a badge you wear.
Right. Our active members volunteer at least 60 hours in the community every year. As president, I volunteer probably 60 hours a week right now, it feels like, but it's all good.
One thing you folks do, and I hate to make this so simplistic and go to the obvious, but there's a pantry there. So even if you're not going to lunch or events at the junior, you can come by the Junior League, and you folks, you make foods, and they're available for
great Thanksgiving.
Delicious.
And one thing everyone loves when you go to the Junior League are the orange rolls. What is the history behind those little boogers?
I wish
they're delicious. That's the point.
I wish I knew. I have a sarcastic sense of humor, and I decided to play an April Fool's prank on social media, and I said that we were doing a new seasonal flavor instead of orange, and we were going to switch to mango. And there were feelings.
I bet.
Oh, I bet.
And we mock it, but the pantry brings in money also for the organization.
It does, absolutely. And Frank mentioned our Thanksgiving is great. They
It's
do
fabulous.
a prepared Thanksgiving meal where you can order that in November and go pick it up.
Order early.
I know.
If you want it. How many orange rolls do you go through a year? Do you know?
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. At least that many.
Yes. And it's always, orange rolls are the one thing that sells out in the pantry because we're contractually obligated to provide them to those people having events.
Well, and if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, they're right there on the desk.
Let's take a look at these. Pass them on over here while we say our goodbyes.
Before we wrap up, I did want to ask you, when you are the largest junior league in the world, how do you decide on what to focus on?
So we have a survey that is done of our membership every 3 years, and we always ask our members, what's important to you? And it keeps coming back to these 3 areas, children's education, children and women's health, which includes mental health, and then whole family basic needs. So all of the agencies that we work with fall into those 3 buckets.
And I'm always amazed, truly. A lot of these women, including myself, have children, have lives, and they put boots on the ground. They go into organizations and they volunteer.
Well, the volunteers tend to be younger, and by that I mean
There's
20,
an age
25
gap,
to 40.
Or cap. You can only be sold to be because junior.
Junior.
Well,
so then you have to become a league member.
That's right.
Get your hands off those rolls.
I started them so I can show
Mary
them on
Lee
camera.
Wilkens is the president of the Junior League of Houston. Mary Lee, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank you
Hello
for having
Houston
us.
and
I
earning
appreciate it.
orange rolls. Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Richard Elbein, the CEO of the Houston and Southeast Texas chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and Alley Theater resident acting company member Todd Waite. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org.
81 degrees at the University of Houston. I'm Tiffany Taylor, looking at 80 degrees as our high, 72 as our low. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, President Trump on Wednesday signed a list of executive actions aimed at both higher education and K-12 schools. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also discuss the latest research to fight Alzheimer's with the CEO of the Houston and Southeast Texas chapter of the Alzheimer's Association.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll celebrate Alley Theater's resident acting company member, Todd Waite, as he embarks on his final performance with the company.
Also, we want to know your thoughts, so give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says he believes Russia and Ukraine want to end their war despite Moscow's strikes on Kyiv overnight.
I think they both want to make peace. I do believe so. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot of very bad blood. A lot of distrust, but I think I hope we're going to get there for the sake of a lot of young people that are dying.
On the matter of the U.S. trade war with China, Trump said talks with Beijing are underway, even though China's government has said that is not the case. NPR's Asma Khalid explains it's not clear the president is changing policy with China just yet, but he is changing his tone.
This week, we've heard the president and some of his top economic advisors acknowledge that the high tariff rates with China are not sustainable over the long run. Trump told reporters that the 145% rate on goods imported from China will come down substantially, but he hasn't given a number. The president says he wants to make a deal with China and is projecting optimism. And here he was Wednesday at the White House.
We are going to have a fair deal with China. It's going to be fair.
This all comes amidst the economic uncertainty the Trump tariffs have sparked. But thus far, the subtle change in tone has not led to any actual change in tariff or trade policy. Asma Khalid, NPR News.
China launched 3 astronauts into space today, the latest in a series of missions to the country's space station. We have more on this from NPR's John Ruwich.
Every 6 months, China swaps out the 3-person crew aboard the Tiangong space station, more than 200 miles up. Thursday's mission, Shenzhou 20, is the 9th such mission. The new crew will overlap for a few days with the existing team, then that crew will head back home after half a year in orbit. On board, the 3-man team will conduct a range of scientific experiments. They'll also do some work outside of the space station, including installing devices to protect it from space debris. The crew rotations aboard Tiangong are expected to continue several more years. They're part of a fast-developing space program with big ambitions, including putting a human back on the moon by the end of the decade. John Ruwich, NPR News, Shanghai.
Israel's commemorating 80 years since the Holocaust. The morning after flags were lowered to half-staff at a remembrance ceremony, sirens wailed in memory of the millions of people killed by Nazi Germany and its allies during World War II. For a moment, traffic stopped and people were seen bowing their heads. The country observing a moment of silence. At Auschwitz, October 7th hostage families joined Holocaust survivors and bereaved families for the annual March of the Living in Poland. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 438 points, more than 1%. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. The long-delayed state ratings for school districts and campuses across Texas for the 2023 school year are out, and Houston ISD earned a C. News 88.7's Colleen DeGuzman has more.
The Texas Education Agency gave the district a 72 for the 2022-23 school year, right before the state took over and Superintendent Mike Miles was appointed. The school year before, HISD earned a B, an 88. The categories that brought the district score down included student achievement, academic growth, and closing the gaps. In the last 2 years, Miles has implemented a new education system, an effort to reform the district's most underperforming campuses. All Houston area and surrounding districts saw declining scores, and the drops were expected because TEA changed its formula, making it harder to earn a high grade. For the list of scores of other districts, check out HoustonPublicMedia.org. I'm Colleen DeGuzman, News 88.7.
Officials with the Harris County Democratic Party are criticizing Mayor John Whitmire for attending a fundraising event for Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw. Political scientist Brandon Rottinghouse spoke with Houston Matters this morning.
There's been long discussion among Democrats in the region about Mayor Whitmire's partisan leanings. He is a rhino or a dino, depending on your perspective. The fact that he now is kind of thrown in his efforts to help a fairly conservative member of Congress definitely solidifies some of those concerns.
A spokesperson for Whitmire says he has, quote, consistently demonstrated he would work with anyone in the best interests of the city of Houston to get projects done for Houstonians. And Parnell Bland, the man accused of shooting a Harris County deputy constable on Monday afternoon, was booked into Harris County Jail and given a $6 million bond in total. It's 80 degrees today with a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back.
Hello, Houston.
It's the noon hour. The Junior League was just here. They left us with some of their classic orange rolls.
Iconic.
I had one. My co-hosts have not had any.
I had one.
Oh, did you get one
Frank
too?
had one.
I kind of stuffed it down my throat. It was delicious.
Ernie mentioned that I was dressed like an orange roll this morning when I walked in.
And you know what? If you want to see if I'm right or wrong, you can watch us on YouTube. Just go to our YouTube channel and look for the Houston Public Media channel.
Goodness.
You'll find our show there. And you can also do it by going to HelloHouston.org. There's an orange banner there you can click, which looks like Celeste today too. Or, and when you do go there, remember, click the like and subscribe button because we want to keep you informed of all the wonderful stuff we're doing. We do archive all of our interviews and all of our shows right there on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and relive some of your favorite moments. You can also call us 713-440-8870 or email us at hellohouston.org. We've gotten a lot of responses to an earlier story, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Frank, any update on the weather there? Or
no,
are we
it's still right. We're looking for
same?
mid-80s over the next several days. Lows in the low 70s, which I hate that because my air conditioner doesn't know whether to turn on at night or not.
Yes.
And you just wake up sweating.
Yes.
You know, it's like just hot.
Yeah.
But so we got that to face. But partly cloudy, maybe a quick shower this afternoon, but it doesn't look like it'll be too annoying.
Speaking of things to face, school ratings, Celeste.
That's right. Earlier we were discussing the Texas Education Agency, or TEA, has released the A through F accountability ratings for the 2022-2023 school year. This has been mirrored with controversy. The TEA's accountability rating had been in limbo due to a lawsuit and also because of the effects that the COVID-19 pandemic had during that time. One of the big issues districts had was the way the scores were now being calculated and how they had changed from previous years, affecting that school year rating. The A through F accountability system started back in 2017, and it evaluates schools in three major key areas: student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. Houston Public Media's education reporter Colleen DeGuzman is here now with us to help us better understand what the ratings mean. We now have them, and you can also join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Now, Colleen, I know that we now have the ratings and we want to move forward to understand what they mean. But before, I do want you to tell us, how was the lawsuit finalized? What happened with the lawsuit, and why were people suing the school district?
Yes, so at
the state.
At the end of the 2022-2023 school year, which is the year before TEA took over Houston ISD and Superintendent Mike Miles was appointed, TEA changed the formula that it uses to grade schools at the end of the year. And so a lot of school districts were upset, saying, you're changing the rules of the game at the end of the game. And one of the biggest changes was that they increased the requirement of students who are going to college or are career ready or in the military to 88% to earn an A. So 88% of students in a high school has to be college ready, in a career, or in the military to earn an A. Before then, it was 60%. And so they were expecting to earn lower grades.
And this is the other interesting point that you were making earlier, Colleen, how multiple school districts, now this wasn't just a HISD thing, how many school districts across the state actually sued Texas?
120.
120. So now the lawsuit has been settled, and now we're looking at the grades that we received. How did schools perform?
So I took a look at all the Houston area school districts and surrounding school districts. Everyone dropped. Everyone dropped around a letter grade. One school district dropped 2 letter grades. Galveston ISD in 2022 earned an 84. In the 2023 school year, they earned a 69. The best performing school district was Pearland. They were 1 point away from earning an A, but the year before, they earned a 94.
Wow.
Houston ISD got a 72 for the 2023 school year. In the year before, they got an 88.
Wow. Help me with the timing and everything in this, just so I understand. So in August, we're supposed to get the 23-24 ratings, correct? The difference we'll see in that, is it an actual change or hasn't? When does the new rating system play out in the ratings we're seeing? The new, qualification system play out in the ratings we're seeing?
So the numbers we're seeing now for the 2023 year is from the new formula.
So what we see will come out in August will tell us how we have done in the year on the same criteria.
You got
right,
it.
Based on the same measurement criteria.
We're going to get, we're expected to get the ratings for this current school year in August, and the 2024 ratings are still in limbo.
So what do the ratings actually get a school? Or not get us? They work for a school to get more money, or?
So there's 2 big things.
Okay.
Parents use them to decide which school district they want to go to, which campuses they want to put their students in.
Sure.
It's also what TEA uses to decide which schools are underperforming. It's the same system that triggered the takeover of Houston ISD.
Wow. So what schools, I mean, you mentioned a couple that had big drops. Were there any schools that improved?
No.
That's right. Nobody improved.
No one. And I looked Pearland, Katy, Cy-Fair, Spring Branch, all the way to Channelview, Brazoria.
One school did get an A, Tomball. Tomball got an A. I think that was the only one.
Well, when we talk about, though, them having dropped, now I'm back to my earlier question again, because I just love the numbers. So the system that rated the schools before, ranked the schools before, and now we have a different ranking system, and these are the results of that. Are they apples to apples, or is it apples to oranges? That the schools may not have changed anything really in their performance, but it's how we looked at their performance, correct?
Correct. So that's the argument that they made in their lawsuit, that because they're using a more rigorous formula, the scores are going to be lower, but that may not reflect the fact. It implies that they're performing, poorer when really it just got harder, and it may seem like they're not doing well.
So then the added wrinkle to that is then when August comes, then we're really comparing accurately, and we can really get a gauge on what's, and it'll also give us a good idea of what Mike Miles has done, because then that's going to be reflecting his tenure.
Exactly.
So when we look at that, do we have any expectations of where schools are falling right now or landing, or we just will find out in August?
I think we find out in August. We're taking STAR right now, so we're going to wait for those scores.
So there seem to be two parts to it. The attrition rate that you talked about, going to college, going to the military, vocational, what you're going to do after high school. That went way higher than they were used to. But it also, to some degree, measures if students are learning in each grade and whether or not they're ready for the next grade. Did that criteria change also, or are we still with that same criteria?
I think those have stayed the same.
Okay, so this has really been about how many of your students went somewhere after high school, and how many just stopped at high school. So going from 60 to 88, there could have been a number of schools that were doing 85, 86, 87, but they didn't get the credit for it because they didn't get to 88. So it's really that kind of a jump of 28 points. I can see why they were angry. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's right. Colleen, what do you think is most surprising to this now that the grades have been released? What was most surprising to people in school districts?
Surprising? I think what was surprising to them was that earlier this month, the 15th Court of Appeals sided with TEA, that they said that Commissioner Mike Morath has the power and authority to change the game in the middle of the game.
Wow. Colleen DeGuzman is Houston Public Media's education reporter. You can find more of her reporting and coverage on our website at houstonpublicmedia.org. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Of course, we're always interested in what you think. If you have an opinion on this rating system, how we rate our school, I'm sure you do have an opinion on all this because you always call us when we're talking about these topics. So give us a call now, 713-440-8870, or email us, talk@hellohouston.org. I set all that up to say earlier we were talking about the Mayor Whitmire attending Dan Crenshaw fundraiser, and you were very active on the phones, but you also reached out to us in other ways. Here's some off-air comments we got about the Whitmire situation. Gary from the Heights said, I don't believe his appearance at Crenshaw's fundraiser was appropriate. Short and to the point. Judy from Richmond said, I think it's good to walk across the aisle, but a fundraiser is a whole different animal. As a Democrat, I'm disappointed he's fundraising for a Republican. Their agenda is different than ours. He also didn't meet with Hidalgo. And then Yvonne from downtown said, you can't spend, let me try that again. You can't spell politics without the word optics. So I love Yvonne's comment. It's a great one right there.
Not much on the positive side to this story.
No. It's interesting. If you have an opinion still on what do you think? Should the mayor have been at a fundraiser? That's I think, the key in this story. A fundraiser for Dan Crenshaw. Let us know. 713-440-8870 or talk@hellohouston.org.
Because it is optics. I mean, there's no proof that he was actually donating any money, but he was at the same place that other people were.
It's also very interesting to see the comments that we're receiving are pretty balanced. I mean, it's pretty equal that some people think that it was optics and some people are like, it was absolutely inappropriate.
Yeah. Okay, so Did you have final comment?
Yeah, my final comment is that we know people, we have friends across political spectrum, and I know when they invite me to something that has a political slant to it, I have to say no. In my position just here, as mayor of the city, I think you need to also think that way. What does it say? Even if I'm going for a friend of mine and not for the candidate that's there, I'm careful about it.
Yeah, I've been invited to parties before, and I thought, that they didn't say this was a fundraiser, but I think it's going to be.
Right, and I don't make a choice one side. I don't go to any of them because I can't in that situation.
Probably smart.
Okay,
so of course the Pope is, do they say lying in state, or at least
I think
he's being respected?
I think so.
Until his funeral on Saturday. And of course, as we predicted, Conclave has gone up crazy with viewership. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it. Okay.
We're saving it for Saturday.
Okay, Saturday.
All right, Frank,
we can text.
How much has it gone up? This is what's crazy.
283% on Monday alone as news of the death of the real-life Pope Francis spread. That's per Illuminate. So viewers watch the fictional papal drama, which was released last year. It's currently streaming on Amazon Prime. So if you want to see it, that's, I guess, the place to see it. It was on for 1.8 million minutes on Sunday, and then by the end of Monday, 6.9 million minutes there. So, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, but it's also an odd metrics how we do this on streaming. So did 6 million people watch it for 1 minute?
Oh, are you going to try that? Are you going to try that?
10 people watch it
You're
over
pull
and over
it all
again.
down, Ernie.
I know, Ernie, that you asked when we had the expert on how accurate it was, and I was surprised that he said it was pretty close.
Yeah, you have to remove yourself from the plot line of the movie.
Right.
But the process they present in the film, our expert said, is very similar to what is going to happen. So I think it's a great insight because it's always been so masked because they seal the doors and they don't come out till the smoke is the right color.
So I guess I don't know the answer to this, but where did they get the script for Conclave? I mean, who knew the inside workings and revealed the man behind the curtain?
We can find anything out these days. The gentleman who wrote it was it Da Vinci Code? He wrote those political thrillers that take place in the religious world.
Brown?
Has context
Wasn't his last name Brown?
Yeah.
Dan Brown. Dan Brown wrote the Da Vinci Code.
Yes, I think he wrote.
So
Conclave
he wrote the
also.
Conclave?
Yeah.
Well, then it's probably all true, right?
Well, I don't believe in the Da Vinci Code.
There's another movie, a 2019 Netflix movie called The Two Popes. That garnered 290,000 minutes watched on Easter and then 1.5 on Monday. So that, too, is very popular.
And really quickly, I do want to know, we had Pastor Sean Palmer here. He did write a Substack all about popes, power, and papal politics, what Hollywood gets right and wrong about choosing a pope, and you can check that out at seanpalmer.com, I believe. But because I think a lot of us are really curious about it.
If you are curious about it, what are you doing to satisfy that curiosity? Also, are you going to get up at 4 a.m. Houston time to watch the funeral on Saturday?
Especially when you can tape it. Or I say tape it.
Tape it.
Whatever. You can
Hey,
send it to
Grandpa.
me. You can send it to me recorded on your VCR.
I'm
That's all
assuming
you
you'll
need.
be able to watch it on YouTube, where you can watch us. But you'll have to go to the Houston Public Media channel, and you can see us all the time. We're going to move off of that story. So let us know what you think about all of this, 713-440-8870, or email us, talk@hellohouston.org. Stepping back again to the Mayor Whitmire question. We have a caller on the line who has an opinion on that. It's Gary calling us from the Heights. Gary, what's on your mind?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to say that the Democratic majority in the House is so important, and the Senate, that Whitmire's efforts tended to hurt the opportunity to have our houses of Congress returned back to Democratic hands in order to reduce, but not eliminate, of course, the damage that's being done by the Trump administration.
I think that is a brilliant point that we hadn't brought into this conversation. And Gary, I appreciate your calling with that point of view. Gary called us, 713-440-8870. Yes, the balance in the House is so slim. Does the Democratic leader of a major city stepping into a fundraiser for a Republican House member, you can see how that can rub people the wrong way very easily because it is so narrow. Yes, probably that district will remain Republican in its representation, But really, once we gotta go back to Yvonne, the optics of it, just very uncomfortable.
Well, next time we run into the mayor, we'll ask him.
Yeah, well, the mayor said he would come back on our show regularly, so hopefully we'll have a monthly visit from him coming up. And
we'll just ask
so
him that
let us
question.
know what you think. As always, 713-440-8870.
And some exciting news for our sports fan. The Houston Rockets defeated the Golden State Warriors 109-94 in the first round of the NBA playoffs to even the best of 7 series 1-1. The Houston Rockets sideline reporter Vanessa Richards will join us on Monday to give us an update. She will be in Oakland with the Rockets.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
Yep. So coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk to CEO of the Houston and Southeast Texas chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, Richard Elbein. And we'll also talk with Alley Theater's Todd Waite about his farewell performance. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
You count on Houston Public Media because you understand how important a free press is to a healthy society.
We're not chasing ratings. We're not owned by a corporation. We're here to inform you with facts, context, and clarity.
When you give today, you're helping protect journalism that serves you, not a political agenda or a bottom line.
Support this public service now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Near Northwest Management District, with a developer-friendly environment and Houston's 6th largest business center. More information at nnmd.org, at the intersection of innovation. Support comes from HealthLink Advisors, preparing hospitals for cyber attacks and resulting downtime, with clinical-led business continuity services designed to ensure continuous patient care and operations. More at healthlinkadvisors.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. Hello Ernie. Hello Celeste.
Hello Frank.
I tell you what, this next subject really is. I think we're all sort of have a dog in the hunt, don't we?
Oh, most definitely.
We're talking about Alzheimer's. My mother had dementia when she passed. My uncle, her brother, did. My grandmother died at age 58.
It have unfairly led to lower-rated schools. But a court ordered the release of that data earlier this month. Education Commissioner Mike Morath says students may have paid a price for the delay.
We have a strong...
Okay, there we go.
Sorry about that.
No. Continue. You were talking
All right,
about...
we're talking about Alzheimer's. My mother had dementia. Her brother, my grandmother, died of Alzheimer's at age 58 in 1957, and it has Alzheimer's on her death certificate. I know, which was very unusual back then. Ernie is his mother's primary caregiver.
Yeah, and if you've been a regular listener to the channel, you've probably heard a lot of my journey. I've shared it as we've gone, and yes, I am. My mom, she has dementia, not Alzheimer's.
Well, that's one of my first questions for our next guest. 7 million Americans are living today with Alzheimer's. The Alzheimer's Association is on a mission to have a world without Alzheimer's disease and all other dementia. They are the leading voluntary health organization working on the national and local level to provide care and support to those affected by Alzheimer's and to advance vital research toward methods of treatment, prevention, and ultimately a cure. I'm honored tonight. I'm going to MC the Alzheimer's Gala of Hope to support support this kind of research, education, and funding. And joining us now is Richard Elbein. He is CEO of the Houston and Southeast Texas chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. So, Richard, first of all, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you.
And you went through this, too, with your family.
I did.
It touches so many people. I know I said 7 million Americans. Do you have any idea how many in Houston or Texas?
Well, in Texas, it's about 460,000.
And then you got to figure they have children, they have spouses.
Right, the number of lives it touches.
I mean, you can almost triple, if not quadruple, that number as to how many people are affected. And even grandchildren. I saw my grandmother go through this. It's because that was on my father's side. I've got it all over the family.
The interesting thing in our family line is it just seems to have affected my mother. We don't seem to have other relatives that have that. And so it starts to make me wonder, we're looking at causes. Oftentimes it's been said you don't know and for sure until after the person has passed when they examine the brain and things. For me, the question is, does it matter how we categorize the dementia, if it's Alzheimer's or a different version of it? It's simply dementia is the bigger battle in the room. Am I right or wrong in that?
Well, so dementia is just an umbrella term that describes a set of symptoms. So when you observe a set of symptoms, changes in memory, reasoning, those kinds of cognitive functions,
right,
then you say, okay, that's dementia. The next question should be, what's causing the dementia? Mm-hmm. And that you want to know because first of all, some causes are treatable. It could be that it's multiple medications that are interacting. It could be a thyroid condition. I mean, there are a lot of things that could cause some kind of cognitive change. But even if it's a related dementia, so Alzheimer's or related dementia, so the treatment for Alzheimer's, at this point, we now have 2 effective therapies that slow the progression of the disease. Those therapies don't work for frontotemporal dementia or Lewy body dementia or Parkinson's-related dementia. So you'd want to know because you'd want to know what therapy is going to actually have an effect. From a caregiver perspective, though, it's the same. Once you know it's dementia, then what we as caregivers have to do is similar. We're going to be supporting them in the same ways. We're trying to make sure that they continue to have a meaningful life experience, that we're not in a punitive way taking away their independence, that we're trying to support their independence as long as possible. And that's going to look very similar regardless of what form of dementia they have.
So as an organization, what is it you are working at? Where's your aspect of what you're doing, what you raise money for, what you try and publicize? What is the area for you folks?
So at the local level, we're supporting families affected. We're trying to change the health systems in our communities to make sure that they're sensitive to the needs of families dealing with Alzheimer's. We're supporting the research community, making sure that they have access to funding sources. So we're involved with legislation both at the state and federal level, and so there's some legislation that we're working on this session that's trying to improve the quality of care and the experience of folks in Texas who are living with Alzheimer's. So we do all of those things at the local level.
Now, often when we think of dementia or Alzheimer's, people just immediately think memory loss. What can you tell us about the progress in studies and research what are we understanding today more about dementia and Alzheimer's?
Well, so we know that there are different kinds of dementia and that those dementias affect people differently. What we know is that Alzheimer's is primarily a change in memory. So that's, I think, why most of us, the most common form of dementia is Alzheimer's. That's about 70% of all dementias. So most people think, dementia, Alzheimer's, it's the same thing and it affects memory. But of course, I think we're all familiar with, for example, Robin Williams or Gene Wilder, who suffered from Lewy body dementia. And the primary or the first hallmark of Lewy body dementia are visual hallucinations.
Oh.
So that's a completely different kind of...
Is that what Bruce Willis has?
Bruce Willis has frontotemporal dementia, and that primarily affects their personality changes and speech changes. So they start in different parts of the brain, and because they start in different parts of the brain, the first noticeable change would be different. So, for example, Parkinson's disease also eventually can manifest as dementia. But the first thing you see in Parkinson's is a mobility change, where in Alzheimer's, the first change is a memory change. But over time, a person with Alzheimer's, as that disease progresses through their brain, may affect mobility. So at some point in those two diseases, they may look very similar. Someone may have mobility issues and memory issues. And that's why early on in the evaluation, a physician will do a history and physical. And the reason for the history is to say, what did you notice first? And if the first thing was, well, they started having changes in their gait or difficulty getting up, okay, that's a mobility change. Versus a person who has Alzheimer's, the first thing you would have noticed is they're repeating themselves. They've forgotten how to do familiar tasks. So those are all memory related.
Okay, I have more questions. We're talking to Richard Elbein, CEO of the Houston and Southeast Texas chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. If you'd like to join the conversation, 713-440-8870. So here's the next question. What is the difference between early onset and late onset Alzheimer's?
Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit different term because we prefer the term younger onset versus early, because it gets a little confusing. Is it early onset or is it early stage? So just to differentiate, so younger onset is when the disease starts to show up in a person younger than the age of 65. So, your 58-year-old grandmother had what we would now term younger onset Alzheimer's disease, if it was Alzheimer's. Or younger onset dementia. So generally, what we see is that starting at the age of 65, the prevalence of the disease ramps up. And it ramps up over a period of about 5 years. It continues to ramp up. So at 65, it's let's just say 1 in 10 people has Alzheimer's, will develop Alzheimer's. By the age of 85, it's maybe 1 in 3. So it's quite a bit more prevalent because the single biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's and dementia is age. So as we age, our likelihood of developing Alzheimer's increases.
As we've seen with a lot of different illnesses and diseases, it seems to be it's more prevalent. But is it more prevalent, or are we getting better at diagnosing it and we're living longer, so we're seeing it? Or is there something in our environment, our biology, something that is increasing the number of these cases, do you think? And I know you're not a medical doctor.
I was going to say, put a big asterisk after my name. I am not a physician, and I do not
play
Richard's
one on
opinion. TV. Well, I mean, we certainly know that people who live longer have a risk of developing all kinds of chronic conditions.
Getting old is not for sissies.
Exactly. And but it appears that it's an increasing risk that is related. I mean, there are a lot of risk factors. We know genetics is a risk factor. It's not the largest risk factor. As I say, just aging is the largest risk factor. So
what about the genetic variants that 23andMe tests for? I don't have either one of them, fortunately, but do those hold any water?
They do, and so ApoE4 is a significant risk factor. There you carry 2 ApoE genes, and so if you have 2 of them, you have a much higher risk of developing Alzheimer's than the general population. If you have 1, you have somewhat more risk. That's not the only genetic risk factor.
What else is?
Well, there are hundreds of genetic risk factors, and then there are also some genetic factors that may reduce your risk. And so, we're still very early in the process of understanding the impact of genetics. We know that lifestyle, so the studies around lifestyle say that as much as 40% of our risk is related to lifestyle factors.
Well, let's explore that, because you always hear that if you exercise, Celeste runs all the time, if you exercise and maybe take some of these, ginkgo bilobas and things. I mean, let's talk about those kind of homeopathic things that you could do and lifestyle.
Yeah, so we're just completing a study. Houston was one of the sites in the United States. There were a total of 5 sites, and Houston was one of them, looking at lifestyle intervention to reduce the risk of dementia in folks who are at high risk. And so we don't know the results. We'll hear the top line results at the international conference in July. But that study was looking at the lifestyle factors of exercise, cognitive stimulation, social engagement, diet, and medical management of chronic conditions that we know increase your risk. So we know people who have chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, those conditions increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So
when my mother was first diagnosed with pre-dementia, they did give her these pills that, you could basically get at a vitamin store that I think are jellyfish maybe. Is there anything you can take, I guess, when you're first diagnosed?
Yeah, so I guess I would ask the question, is there anything that you know of that you can take that reduces your risk of any chronic disease? It sounds great, but honestly, have you ever heard that somebody solved their heart disease by taking a vitamin?
But molded cheese has really come out as a bacteria. There are things out there that we discover in time. Look at pig's blood.
When we're looking at the young onset of dementia and Alzheimer's, and you're looking at younger people, what are some of the things or questions that someone might ask themselves if they're seeing changes that could be connecting, when should you see a doctor is basically what I'm trying to say.
We've all walked into a room looking for our glasses that are on our head.
Our glasses, our keys. When does it actually start to be a problem?
Yeah, so, it's an interesting question because the new medications that I mentioned that actually can slow the progression of the disease are apparently most effective and perhaps only really effective if they're started in the very early stages of the disease.
Right.
So when we talk about early stages of the disease is when I know there's something wrong in my brain, but you all probably don't know yet. You haven't really noticed it. By the time I'm repeating myself and I'm starting to have slippage, probably you're noticing and I've stopped noticing. So we need the person themselves to raise their hand and say, my thinking does not feel like it used to feel. So, for example, I'm great with numbers. I remember all kinds of numbers. If I start noticing that skill is not feeling the same way it used to, I should be paying attention to it. Whether that means I notice that the dogs next door now bark all night and I don't get the sleep I need, so maybe it's a sleep issue, or that I've started on a new medication and it's affecting some aspect of my thinking. But I should be paying attention to that.
Last year, a woman spoke, a physician spoke at the gala, and she was talking about a blood test you can get done that shows markers of Alzheimer's or dementia. Is that still out there and available? Is that something?
Last year when she spoke about it, it wasn't available then,
right?
And it's still not available. So there is under study. There is a blood test, which we expect within the next, 18 months, will be approved and available. It currently is not, and part of the reason it's not is that in order to use a blood test, you have to have a standardized set of markers. So that your cousin in New Jersey is getting the same blood test and getting the same information as the person in Houston. And right now, the standardization has not happened. So we know that there are blood biomarkers that identify those two indicators of Alzheimer's, amyloid and tau. And those can be found now in the blood. And so in research, it's been shown that that's possible. But it's not available for prime time yet.
How can people find out more information about the Alzheimer's Association?
Well, they can absolutely call us, 800-272-3900, and they can go on our website, alz.org. And if they add /Texas, they'll get to our local chapter and can find local resources.
Well, I'll see you tonight.
Great.
And I'll probably be calling you soon. So,
well, we welcome anyone to call us if they need support, because this is not something that people should do by themselves.
Thank you.
Richard Elbein is the CEO of the Houston and Southeast Texas chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Richard, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Coming up, we'll be talking with the longtime Alley Theater actor Todd Waite as Hello Houston continues. Stay with us. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Signify Business Cash by Wells Fargo. With this business credit card, cardholders can earn rewards on business purchases with no caps or categories to track. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/signify. Terms apply. Support comes from DePelchin Children's Center. April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and for more than 130 years, DePelchin has worked to ensure that Houston area children are part of safe and loving families. Learn more at depelchin.org. Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Missy Mazzoli's contemporary opera Breaking the Waves, making its Houston debut at the Wortham Center now through May 4th. Tickets are available at hgo.org.
Houston Public Media is rooted in our community. We show up at school board meetings, city council votes, and neighborhood events.
That's how you stay informed about what's happening around you through deep local reporting that brings clarity and insight.
Your support powers this public service, so Greater Houston stays informed, connected, and safe.
Support local journalism right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Elmore, communicating with clarity and inspiration, collaborating with executive leadership to create expert internal and external communications strategy. Elmore, listen, clarify, communicate. More at elmorepr.com. Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org. Join us for Hello Houston, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, with the generous support from our founding sponsor, Kathy Sanders.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. I'm Celestia Sherman here with Ernie Manous
and I'm not welcoming us all back.
Frank
Sorry.
Billingsley.
Well, Frank, they just said our names.
Okay, well,
I know who we are. I didn't do my intro because I was so busy looking up to see what I had said wrong. The one thing that I caught, and all of you caught too. So yes, it was Robert Harris who wrote Conclave. And it was
Dan Brown
who wrote Da Vinci Code.
Code.
So I was going back to see what were Robert Harris's other books, and he did Fatherland and a whole bunch of other big novels also, which is interesting because the Da Vinci Code may be a play playing at a local theater sometime soon. I don't know what I can say, but it leads me into our first guest, or our next guest.
Yes. Are you going to read the off-air comments about Whitmire
Yeah,
first?
I was going to say we have been getting quite a few off-air comments about something we were chatting about a little bit earlier about Mayor Whitmire attending a fundraising event for Dan Crenshaw. Jill from Galveston says, I find it hard to believe that Whitmire wasn't making a politically calculated move. He knows what he was doing, and it isn't a surprise. Mac from West University says, people thought they were electing a Democrat, but they haven't been paying attention to him when he was a Texas House legislator. And lastly, Alva from League City says, wanted to applaud Mayor Whitmire for his actions, which demonstrated diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to applaud him for demonstrating what our founding fathers stood for in regards to nonpartisanship. They were reveled by the concept of political parties. There you go.
All right.
Quite a few comments. I mean, that really sparked a lot of conversation.
And we're interested what you think. Give us a call, 713-440-8870 or talk@hellohouston.org.
Ernie's just so excited about our
next guest. Now can I finally
guest.
introduce my guest?
Yes, you can. We're so glad he's here.
And he's a dear friend. Actor Todd Waite has been a resident company member at the Alley Theater, I can't believe this, for the past 25 years, and to date has played the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes, in 6 different productions. He's currently playing the character in Ken Ludwig's Baskerville, a Sherlock Holmes mystery, which also, they say, marks his final production as a resident acting company member, and possibly his final time playing this iconic role. Now with us to tell us more is about his farewell, these are air quotes around it, performance. He's like Cher to all of us, a true stand-up guy and a friend of mine, Todd Waite. Welcome, Todd.
Hello, Houston.
Thank you.
Hey,
yes. Okay,
nice
let's
to see all of you.
Let's start with the Cher similarities here. Cher's big farewell tour.
That's
she
what
didn't
I
stay
call it.
down for long.
Been going on for 20 years, hasn't it?
Yes. I will still be acting. I'll still do plays. I'm just retiring from the permanent company, which has been such an incredible blessing. There's very few contracts in America that you are paid week in, week out, and have that opportunity. But it's also a lot of plays per year. And at 65, being between dust and cremate, I felt that perhaps I should cut down to maybe 3 plays a year.
So you'll still be out there flexing that acting muscle that we love so much.
Yeah, thank you for that. And yes, I will be.
I mean, you're a professional. I can't imagine memorizing a play. I'm 65 in a month. I can't imagine memorizing all those lines. Is that a challenge for you? Is that one of the things going on?
Well, my memory is still as good as it was, but
Right.
it's just as much as it always has. It takes up enormous amounts of time because most of us basically are off book before we start rehearsals. Then there's a month of rehearsal, a month run. So you are constantly in your spare time memorizing. Love words, love plays, love the people I work with, but enough.
Because we know somebody from the Alzheimer's Association.
Oh,
that
yeah, we
could-
do. We have friends in high places.
Well,
That's
it's
for
interesting.
sure.
Another actor from the Alley once said to me, it's like working any muscle. So this memorization of lines is a muscle you work all the time. So you're probably better at it than lay people like us who would sit down and try and learn something because you've used that skill repeatedly.
And I'm better at it now than I used to be, even though I am older just because we do it so much. But I can tell you one of my concerns is doing fewer. I've decided I'm going to learn the lines of King Lear and The Tempest so that I keep my mind
that
going.
muscle going.
And I might be ready if anyone ever wants to.
and when you're doing so many plays and you're the same one, how do you stay fresh and how do you keep that character new for new audiences when they come in day out?
You know, that's a really good question. And I do know that some actors get very bored doing that. A lot of them go into TV and film to avoid that, long runs in New York. I did long runs for years because at the Shaw Festival, we'd open a play and run every one of those plays every year for 9 months.
Wow.
It's never bothered me. I've never been bored. I did Les Miserables for a year. I could have done it another year. I'm not quite sure if it's the audience that keeps me fresh because I'm very audience focused. I want to connect with them. I always imagine somebody there is that kid I was at 9 or 10 that goes into theater because of a great moment that they see. So I don't know. It just keeps me fresh. You can also say, today I'm just going to concentrate on seeing everybody's eyes. Today I'm going to concentrate on really listening. Today on keeping forward momentum. So you should keep fresh if you're a professional.
Yeah, right.
Okay, people who love you. This is the we love you part. So Doris sent me an email that said, I hope my schedule allows me to catch your interview with Todd Waite. We moved to Houston. We saw him first in Santaland Diaries, which was hilarious. Over the years, we've enjoyed mostly the mysteries. My daughter was in town for Hounds of the Baskervilles' last performance, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. We are heading to the parking garage, and we joined the crowd to applaud Mr. Waite when he headed out of the theater, wishing him well and hope to see him from time to time.
I mean, that's so lovely.
Well, it doesn't end there because, our phone lines are open at 713-440-8870.
All right.
And on the line, we have Charles. Charles from the 3rd Ward. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted Mr. Waite to know that he is my favorite actor in Houston, and I love seeing his work, and he's killing it in Baskerville, and I love seeing his picture in Outsmart, a very pulchritudious picture. And my big question is, now that he's leaving the Alley full-time, will we see him on some of the smaller stages and smaller theaters here in Houston?
Oh, are you going to work?
Good question.
Thank you to Charles. You going to work with other companies?
Absolutely. If there's a wonderful project to do and they think that I could do it well, I'm absolutely open to working. I'd love to work with the other companies. There's just been no opportunities in the past, but absolutely. I seem to recognize that voice, I think, by the way, but I won't, I won't give him away. But absolutely, I think I'm a neighbor over in the Third Ward area, as a matter of fact, and a great neighborhood to live in.
Take me to the show you're doing right now. You're back in the Sherlock Holmes garb.
Yes.
How does Sherlock change for you from production to production? Or have you found things through that journey that you just build upon to create the character?
I think the second, probably the latter, in the sense that there's a certain core thing for me that I can bring to it, which is this kind of sprung coil of physicality that's kind of waiting to explode because of some thought. That's kind of the main thing, where the surgical knife edge of his need is the language. So I always start with what's the key word in every sentence. But what changes it are the playwrights who've adapted it.
Right.
And I've done 6 plays, as you've pointed out, all from different authors. This one is a spoof on it, kind of a goof, where Brandon Hernsberger, Elizabeth Bunch, had Dylan Godwin play like 45 characters, 75 costume changes. Literally, one has 5 people working on that costume change for 12 seconds. It's a spectacular bit of theater virtuosity to see. They're really the stars of the play, along with Christopher Salazar. It's told through Watson's point of view. So it's fun for me to be able to do something that doesn't take it too seriously, because it's not Hamlet. It's never been Hamlet, but it's fun as hell, and that's why it's good to go out on this one.
I may have asked you this question in the past when we're doing Agatha Christie shows or whatever, but my concern as an actor in a role like this, you know the outcome. You know what's going to happen here.
I do.
How do you make sure you don't play moments that may either give away something, mislead someone, or maybe you underplay something that the audience really should have for following a mystery through?
I think back to when Ernie asked me that question in 2006, and I say, gosh, I better be careful. No.
We have done this a lot over the years, and it's always been a joy.
I'm teasing. I don't know you asked me that. But no, we're just very careful to not give away. And in rehearsal, sometimes we realize, wait a second, I'm having an attitude or an arched eyebrow or a bit of a look of something that I shouldn't really know. And the directors help us out with that. And this crew of rascals will look at me and say, oh, I see. You have ESP, Todd, with this character, do you?
Yeah.
And I'll know, okay.
Oh, God, I went too far on that.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned Shakespeare 2 or 3 times now. Do you have a favorite? If a play comes your way and you think, yes, I cannot wait to do it.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was an English professor and probably the greatest teacher of language I ever knew. I'd go when I was in grade 7 and 8 to her grade 12 classes, and she'd throw down a Shakespeare book, dog-eared and dusty almost, and she'd say, this book is full of teen love, suicide, murder,
betrayal,
sex, love, intrigue, laughter. She'd toss it down on the desk. It's the complete works of Shakespeare. So,
or the Bible, one of the
one of the other. So I would love to do a little more Shakespeare. I'd love to do Lear. I'd love to do Prospero in The Tempest. I would love to have done Hamlet. I think Hamlet's a lot like Sherlock in the more serious plays, not in this one.
I was Laertes, by the way, in college.
I can see it. You could still play it.
We'll do it together.
There you go.
Todd, I actually want to know, you're going to have a little more time on your hands. Is there anything that you want to do for yourself outside of the theater?
Rest.
A little R&R?
Yeah. Well, you know, my graduate work is actually in directing. And I did a fair amount of directing before coming here. And I took 2 years off to go and be the senior artistic in-house director for O at the Bellagio for Cirque du Soleil. So I would like to get the opportunity maybe to direct a little more. But before that, I'm going to Vancouver, my hometown, although I'm going to for sure retire in Houston because I love it, for 2.5 months. So I'm going to go up to Vancouver on May 21st, and luxuriate in the beaches.
And you have earned it. If my count is right, at the Alley, you've been in 135 productions. Does that sound right?
I have full productions. I'm sure if you add in like readings and things, it's a lot more than that.
Really quickly before we go, Bob is on the line, and he's got a comment for you. He's calling from the Museum District. Take us out, Bob.
Thank God, Todd's an old friend of ours. Well, he's not old. He's a dear friend of ours. And I just wanted to talk about how he has done so much for the community, not just the theater itself. He taught me how to read poetry. He taught my wife how to do a TEDx talk. And he works with young actors, and he's very involved in the community. And I just wanted to know how much I appreciate it.
Yay.
Wow.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much.
And a huge thank you to you, too, Todd.
Thanks to
brought
all of
so
you.
much to our community, and we truly
Enjoy your retirement.
That's right.
Thank you.
Come
I
back
love
and visit
Houston.
us.
Thanks, everyone.
Todd Waite is an Alley Theater resident, acting company member, currently playing Sherlock Holmes in Ken Ludwig's Baskerville, a Sherlock Holmes mystery. Ken Ludwig's Baskerville, a Sherlock Holmes mystery, is currently running at the Alley Theater now through Sunday, May 4th. And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for watching and listening, calling, and joining the conversation to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow for more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Houston Community College, with 8 areas of study, offering students over 90 programs and career choices, online or in person.